I don't know how anyone could like see that and not wonder why someone's telling me not to do my own research. I mean, it's so obvious that they're lying to you because they want to lie to you and they want to manipulate you and they want to keep you ignorant. It's like the oldest story in history.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Collapse Life podcast. I'm Zahra Sethna, and it's great to have you with us. Please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button now. Today, we're going to journey into a conversation that spans continents but hits home. Our guest is an American journalist based in Bangkok, Thailand, whose hard hitting journalism on his Substack Armageddon Prose cuts through the noise with wit, clarity, and a healthy dose of skepticism. Ben Bartee has a sharp take on how the world views the US these days under Trump 2.0 and what it's like watching the chaos we're seeing in America from a few time zones away. I'm super excited to talk to him today about the state of journalism, where it's thriving, where it's tanking, and how Trump's return to the White House is shaking up the media landscape. I think today's conversation will bring a perspective that's raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Ben, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
It's it's going to be great to hear what it's like to watch the chaos that's unfolding here in America from outside the country. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing. You live in Bangkok. So what do you see? What do you hear on the streets there in terms of how the world is viewing Trump 2.0?
People ask me questions like this all the time, and that the truth is that the extent to which Asians care at all about who the president is or international politics in general is the extent to which it impacts the economy. So they don't really care. They don't understand the culture war stuff. They don't care. Even if they understood, they probably wouldn't care. Maybe there's like a small subset of Bangkok elites who might have like more in-depth opinions because they're more, keyed into the neoliberal economic order. They tend to travel outside more. They have more like a financial stake in what happens outside of somewhere like Thailand. But the average Thai, like your average taxi driver, or they don't care. They don't care. Um, they're they have like really superficial. Not to say that they're not smart, but they have very limited interest in what happens like geopolitically. Yeah, that's kind of the answer.
I can see how that would be the case with, any change of government even though it's the United States of America, it's not just some random country, but this isn't just any president. This is Donald Trump. So I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this chat with you is because we're in America, we're so focused on every single thing that anyone says and how it's being heard and who's responding to it that um I think we have this sense that it's resonating in the same way other places, and the country that we hear the most about here in America is Canada, and Canada really is responding to almost everything that Trump says and does, and Asia is very far away. So, do you think though that because it's Donald Trump, there's any difference in the reaction in Asia?
As far as like the personality of Trump, no, I don't. I don't think they view him as xenophobic in this way that like he's portrayed in the Western corporate media. If anything, they like his aesthetic. They think he's like he presents himself as a good businessman. They like that. I've heard that a few times. But on like the substance, what makes Trump different is the tariff wars that he's
Right.
threatening, which do have obviously economic impacts everywhere. So yeah, we can
Yeah,
talk about
how's that yeah, how's that playing out? Tell us about that. And I know, you're based in Thailand, but you travel quite a bit around Asia. So what is your view between, say, Thailand, Vietnam, any other places that you travel, what are people thinking about this? I mean, obviously, the economies in Southeast Asia are deeply tied to trade, so tariffs are going to have a big impact.
Yeah, especially somewhere like Vietnam, which is like a major manufacturing hub for American companies and multinational corporations. So actually, in the first Trump administration, uh, Vietnam was like really the beneficiary of the trade policies because all of these manufacturing firms were scared about what Trump might do with China. So they had, factories in China or whatever, and they were worried about potential trade war fallout. So they moved a lot of manufacturing from China to Vietnam. It's right. It's a skip across the border. So that was like actually a major boon for Vietnam's economy, and I think for that reason he was pretty popular with Vietnam. And I was just reading before this interview a little bit about um, the current situation, and Trump's threatening tariffs on everyone, including Vietnam, include everyone. Um,
Mm,
and I think part of that is just like his gamesmanship. Like his kind of his superpower is that he's unpredictable. So people,
yeah.
everyone's just on their toes. They kind of know he can't be bullied on like a personal level. So they're just, they're not sure. They're not sure what he's going to do. So the Vietnamese prime minister was out there saying he would golf with Trump all day, was the quote, to try to like convince him not to tariff Vietnam.
That's amazing. Do you think people in Asia have a very different view on leadership than we have here in North America? I mean, people there are used to kind of autocratic leaders or very different style of so-called statesmanship or leadership. So, do you think that they see Trump in a different light than we do? Maybe that what we see as a bully, they see as maybe something that's to be admired.
Yes, that's a very astute point. Um, I don't know if you've traveled to Asia, but that's totally accurate. They just the whole culture, the whole mindset is like totally anathema to like the Western, individual rights, going back to like Immanuel Kant and before that the Magna Carta. This is like a millennia long kind of evolution of like Western political thought that just never existed in Asia. It never took foot. Um, it's totally different tradition. They're very like authoritarian. I don't mean that like negatively, although
Hmm.
it's not my preferred. I'm of the West, but they're very like deferential to authority. Um, really anyone in authority. So like if it's a Buddhist country like Thailand, monks, um, doctors, teachers, police,
Mhm.
although whatever, anyone in authority, they're taught to like genuflect to.
Right.
Um, so they don't care at all that Trump's like if if you can say he's authoritarian, like that's not um that wouldn't bother them. That's just the norm.
Yeah, yeah, and they're used to it. I mean, this is kind of what they, not when I say "they," it sounds so patronizing, it's not what I mean, but just as you described, I mean, if you think about the history in modern times in Asia of countries, the kinds of leaders that they've had and the kinds of, procedures they've had in bringing those leaders into power have been very, very different, and I think we forget that as North Americans. We want someone who's kind of relatable or appealing, the everyman, the kind of person that you could sit down and have a coffee with, and it's it's not at all the mindset of people in other parts of the world, and it's so interesting to actually think about it that way, that this might be something that's actually an admirable quality where it's to us so abrasive. It's really an interesting kind of way to look at it. So, because I think one of the things I was going to ask you is, do you think that, obviously we talk a lot, and I think you talk a lot in your blog as well, about how the poles are shifting right now, and that we're moving from this American hegemony into a kind of multipolar world where the seats of power rest in very different places than they have done in our lifetimes. I was wondering if you think that places like Thailand are going to kind of realign themselves maybe away from the West and more towards China or Russia or Iran or any of these other countries that here in the North American continent we've previously seen as rogue nations. Do you think that there's any shift happening in what you're seeing in living there?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it varies by country because every country has its own historical perspective. So, like when I was saying that, I was thinking of Vietnam and China. They're like historically very hostile with one another, even though they were both communist, and China supported Vietnam during the war. They're like very, China has a long history of messing with Vietnam. So they're not going to turn to China. But
Mm,
somewhere like Thailand uh, is definitely, for a while, they've been kind of pivoting. Not like they haven't turned against the U.S., but they've just opened up a lot to China. There's a lot of Chinese business that happens in Thailand. And actually, historically, the elite are actually Chinese Thai mix. So, sometime many centuries ago, Chinese immigrated to Thailand and kind of like became like the business class. Um, and they also have lighter skin
mhm,
than Thai people, which is a factor in like social status, which is not a legacy which people sometimes claim of like white supremacy or whatever. It's a class thing because historically the people who had to work out in the rice fields were the manual laborers and they got dark, and the people that could stay inside were lighter skinned. So that's where it comes from. I totally went on a tangent. Your initial question was the political realignment. And yes, I think of course that's happening. Thailand is actually, if you read about the history, it's really interesting how they avoided colonization. So Thailand's the only country in Southeast Asia that was never colonized by a European power, and they did that because they're like excellent diplomats. They just have like a natural emotional intelligence for like reading people. That's kind of like by far the best I've ever seen
mm,
in the world. They just know how to like relate to people. They're totally non-confrontational. They'll tell you what you want to hear just to kind of like avoid any confrontation, and then with like zero intention of ever following through. So that's kind of what they did with the European powers. Like the British and the French came and they were like, we want to, import the Catholic Church. We want to do business. You're gonna like do this and that. And the Thais would say like, okay, and then they would either like half implement it or just like totally disregard it later on. Um, so that's the game that they play and they have for a long time. It's just like the way they are. So they're willing to talk to anyone. They're not like particularly ideological. They also survived the communist stuff in Southeast Asia. They're just very. Someone once described it as like they have a strong cultural immune system. Like they just
interesting.
they can't be they can't be subverted really by any like outside major power.
That's
So I
super
don't
interesting.
I don't see any reason why they wouldn't um, deal with whatever power is offering them something.
Right. What you just described in terms of the cultural outlook of ties is very different than the way we operate here in America, where everything is kind of taken at face value. And your word is your bond, that kind of thing that we've grown up with. How have you been able to navigate that as an American living in Thailand? And tell us what brought you there in the first place.
Oh, what brought me here in the first place was in 2011. Well, I graduated college in 2010 and had no idea what to do. I had a political science degree, which is useless um, unless you go to law school. And I didn't want to do that. So I found a job. I started looking, I kind of wanted to move abroad just for fun because I didn't know what
Mhm.
else to do. And first, I got a job in Saudi Arabia, which at the time, let's just say my lifestyle was not compatible with fundamentalist Islam. So that lasted like a month. And I was basically deported from Saudi Arabia. Um, and after that, I went to Taiwan, and it was all right. But I had a falling out with my school, mostly because of my lifestyle at the time.
You were
Uh,
teaching?
yeah, I was teaching English there at a private language school. They have like it's a huge business. They have like so kids go to school from 8 to 3 or whatever, and then after their parents send them to they call them cram schools, or it's a private language school for English.
Mhm.
Um, and that's just the Asian way. Like they force them to study from like dawn to dusk.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was working there and it didn't work out. And I met an expat there who happened to be from. So I was in the middle of the mountains in Taiwan. Like the only other foreigner that was there happened to be a guy from the same county I was from in Georgia,
No way.
outside of Atlanta. Yeah, which was weird.
Yeah.
And he described Thailand. He said Thailand was awesome. So after my employment ended with this school, I had some money, so I moved to Thailand and got a job at a school that didn't work out. This is like a pattern. Um, yeah. So anyway, the short version of the story is I fell through a roof one night in Ranod, Songkhla, Thailand, because I was heavily intoxicated and broke. It was like a garage roof, and I was living with like the nicest family of like they were like rice farmers.
Oh, wow.
They were like really nice though. Like Thais outside of Bangkok, at least, or Phuket, are like the nicest people. So I kind of feel bad about um, my behavior. But anyway, they locked the gate at night, so the only way to get out was like this roof. And I figured that would be a good idea. I don't know where I wanted to go, but it was like 3 a.m. and I just didn't like inspect the roof. I thought it was like wood or something, but it was just like some like straw. So I fell right through it and broke my foot and my ankle in like three
Oh,
places.
no. Oh, no.
Yeah. And yeah, anyway, so I had to go back to the US, and there I stayed for a few years, just like not really living my best life. I worked at, Papa John's. I was a delivery driver and stuff like that. Really terrible work like that. Um, and then I finally got a little bit of money. I quit drinking first in 2016. Um,
Congratulations.
thank you. And I got a little bit of money saved up. Uh, and there was nothing. for me. I had nothing going on in the U.S.
Mhm.
Um, so I moved back to Thailand in late 2016, like right after Trump got elected.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, I lived there. I was a professor at a university for 3 years. I'm sorry, I wasn't a professor. My Thai boss told me once I wasn't allowed to refer to myself as a professor. So yeah, the Thai word is a jarn, and I guess that's supposed to be reserved for like actual like full-time tenured professors. It literally means master. So
Right.
a jarn is like someone at like the apex of their craft or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so like people would call me a jarn, but I wasn't actually that. So I wasn't. I should clarify. I wasn't an instructor. I wasn't a professor. I was an English instructor
Okay.
for like 3 years. Um,
Oh,
then I moved to Vietnam, and I met my wife there. She was an English teacher at the same school, um, and she moved to Ukraine, back to Ukraine, and I followed her there in 2020.
wow.
And yeah, anyway, then we lived a bunch of other places, and now we're back in Asia.
That's an amazing story. And so when you came back to Thailand, you did not go back to teaching English, you went into independent journalism, is that right?
Yeah, actually, so I was in Vietnam teaching English in 2020, in early 2020, and I had kind of hated teaching English for a long time. It's just really not interesting after a while. Like, uh, you know how you're teaching kids how to say like this is a cat and whatever. It's just not stimulating at all,
Repetitive.
and very repetitive. There's a lot not to like about it. I mean, I'm not complaining because you can come to Asia and you can get paid above local wages basically anywhere you want to live, and people love you because you speak English and you're white. It's just a fact. I didn't write the rules. Um, but yeah, so I was teaching English in Vietnam in 2020, and then the lockdowns came, and all the schools
Wow.
closed, and the borders were locked down. I mean, you know how it was. Um,
Yeah.
and so I had no income. So I started writing. Um, I just first I started writing for this content mill, which is like the term for like um, these websites where businesses can say like I want a bunch of articles about XYZ topic, and then these websites farm them out to like independent writers for kind of it's not really lucrative, it's
Right.
but anyway, that's how I started. And then I got in touch I started writing political stuff, which I had been interested in a long time. I've been a political junkie my whole adult life. Um, so I started pitching all these websites on articles I would write, and I finally got a taker from this guy named Joe Jarvis of the dailybell.com.
Mhm.
And he started paying me to write articles for that site, and then I got my stuff started getting picked up on Zero Hedge, which was
Yeah, how did that happen?
so um, Joe Joe Jarvis had run the Daily Bell for many years, and I'm not sure how he became connected with Zero Hedge, but he had a contributor account for the Daily Bell on Zero Hedge. So I wasn't even involved at first in getting my articles reposted. I would just post them on the Daily Bell, and then he would
Mhm.
repost them on Zero Hedge, where they got way more views because it's a huge website.
Yeah.
And then later on, um, through that connection, I got introduced to one of the editors over there, and so
Oh,
now I
cool.
have my own like Armageddon Prose account, and yeah, it's been really great.
Yeah, it must be. It's amazing. We follow Armageddon Prose, but then we see it on Zero Hedge as well, and we always think, "Oh, that's super cool." Tell us about Armageddon Prose. It's your Substack. What's the focus of it? What kinds of posts do you do? What gets the most traction?
I'm not sure what gets the most traction. I don't really look at the numbers that much. Um, and as far as content, it's kind of like whatever I feel like writing about. Um, I guess mainly it would be like international geopolitical stuff, transgenderism, uh, the biomedical regime,
Mm-hmm.
COVID, bird flu. I have a fat propaganda series, which is like body positivity stories. Those might be my favorite ones to write. I don't know if they get the most traction, but um, I really enjoy those. And other than that, it's just like European. I like writing about European politics, just because it's so crazy. What like in the UK and Germany.
Yeah. Especially these days. I
Yeah.
mean, things are changing so fast in ways that none of us would have expected. So there's you have your choice of what to write about on a daily basis. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to pick and choose. It's I only have so much time to write stuff, so sometimes it's hard to like pick one topic.
Yeah. Who I suspect where we probably cross over a lot in the things that we look at, the things that, we kind of nod our head at. Who would you say your audience is? Do you get a sense from your comments or the feedback that you get?
Well, I think a lot are expats abroad. I
Mm,
get I get feedback from that a lot, especially because my bio says Bangkok-based, so I get a lot of emails and comments from people in Asia, but like Thailand specifically.
yeah.
Um, and a fair number of your European readers, the majority American,
Yeah.
um, Canadian.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so you are looking at the same sort of things we're looking at, but obviously you have a different perspective on it. Your location is different, and your just cultural viewpoint is different. What How would you characterize where we're going? Like, are we in collapse mode? Is this a controlled demolition? Is it just pure chaos, clown show? What would you say is kind of happening right now? What are your expectations in the short term?
Well, I have to say the little AI Stargate show that um, the new administration put on, like the second day, um, kind of freaked me out, like a lot. Uh, I It's hard to know what to make of that, but like billionaires pouring billions of dollars into AI research, which they promise is going to be used to cure cancer with mRNA technology. I don't, yeah, I don't, that doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But if, like, as a general direction, I think we've been heading towards, um, it's hard to put a label on it, but maybe techno-feudalism is the closest
Interesting.
approximation. Little fiefdoms of technocrats that run everything, um, through various technological means, surveillance, social credit scores,
Yeah.
uh, centralized currency, stuff like that.
Do you think people are seeing this happening the way you do, the way we do? Especially the sort of the European people that the Asian people that are people waking up to this?
I don't think Asians are in general. I don't think they have the same distrust of authority. Um,
Mm,
I mean, of course, there are like undercurrents, but um, I don't. There's no real like serious movement that I see to push back. Um, they tend to just accept things passed down from on high at face,
That's crazy.
how they are.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the Europeans I know. I think it's just the nature of the expat in general to be like disillusioned and distrusting
Yeah.
of you know, because there's first of all there's the whatever they left behind, um, which is kind of a clown show, and then on top of that you live in a place where you if you're not skeptical of everything, you tend to get taken advantage of.
Mhm.
There's a lot of scams uh, that are targeted at everyone, but especially foreigners because they don't speak the language and they don't know local prices. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot that like disadvantages uh, the foreigner. So I saw a good X thread about this guy who was living in India, um, who was describing a low trust society, which
Mhm.
he classified India as. And he was talking about like the psychological effect it has on you when you're constantly surrounded by people that are trying to take advantage of you. And I will
Yeah.
say this is not true everywhere. This is true in areas that are like I don't know about India. I've never been to India particularly, but in general, this kind of stuff happens in like areas that are heavily populated by foreigners or tourists, like traffic
Right.
by tourists. So like
Yeah.
Bangkok, Phuket, um, Chiang Mai, places like that. It's not true. Like you don't get the same predatory behavior like outside of that. Like actually, I'm
In
not in
rural
Bangkok.
areas.
I'm not in
Go ahead.
Bangkok now. I'm in Lampang, which is like in the
Mhm.
north, kind of close to Chiang Mai, but way different. And there's like there's a few. I've seen a handful of foreigners, and they're probably long-term expats.
Right.
So you don't. There's not like there's no industry that's developed to like you know
Take advantage.
take advantage of foreigners.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so back to this X post. It was just interesting, like the psychological effect it has on you when you're like every day you're encountering people that are trying to get one over on you, like getting
Mhm.
a taxi. He pretends the meter is broken, which happens all the time in Bangkok. You have to like, you'll probably flag down like two, depending on the area, you can probably flag down like two taxis before you'll get to a third one that'll actually turn the meter on and give you like the price. Like the rest, they'll like pretend it's broken, or they'll try to like preset the price that's going to be like three times higher than it should be.
But does
Um,
that happen to, Thai people as well, especially sort of, Thai elites? Like, are they gonna have that same experiences or only just for expats?
no, I think it happens across the board, but like I said, foreigners tend not to know the local prices, and they tend
Right.
to like not want to cause a scene. They're in a foreign country. Maybe they're tourists on vacation, and they don't want to haggle with a
Yeah.
taxi driver.
And we just don't have a haggling culture, so we don't even know
Yeah,
how
yeah,
to
exactly. Yeah,
properly, whereas I think people in Asia are just born into that culture, you just know, and so
yeah.
even if you haggle, the starting price for you is probably twice the price of where, a Thai person is gonna start their bartering or their haggling.
Yeah, and they also assume that foreigners have a lot of money, which is like um in general probably true that they have more money than locals. Um Definitely not like in every case, but
Right.
yeah, I mean that's another factor. They just assume you have money to spend.
Yeah.
So,
I think the idea of, high trust versus low trust culture is really interesting because, um things are changing so fast and we've grown up in America where it's a very high trust culture, but that is probably being eroded under our feet, and we don't really have the defenses to live in a low trust culture. Um, so I think it's a really interesting way to look at things.
Yeah, I thought this. I can't remember who posted it, or I would give credit. But it was like really an in-depth, like multiple posts on a thread about
Mm.
the toll that it takes. And yeah, I think the U.S. is probably headed that way. Looks like.
We've had a few interesting conversations via email, and we've had some guest posts from a guy in Brazil who called Fabian Omar, who talks about third worldization, basically how all of that stuff starts to erode and chip away in places that were formerly high trust, high developed countries that, now you lock your door and you can't sit comfortably at an outdoor cafe without someone coming by or, watching your purse to make sure that no one's going to steal it. Where, months ago, years ago, that was just not the way. Um, do you notice that when you come back to the United States? Do you notice changes? Because I know when you live outside of the country and you come back, you see big sea changes that we don't see because we're living through them.
Well, I haven't been back to the U.S. since I left in 2016. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, so but I mean, I watch videos and stuff. I
Yeah.
read. Um, yeah, I definitely think that trust is in general has eroded significantly, probably from the apex in like the 1950s or 60s. Um, yeah, if you could somehow like make a graph about it, it would probably just be a steady decline since somewhere around the 40s or 50s or something.
Yeah. And just like you just described in Thailand, urban centers versus rural areas, big difference, like a totally different way of operating when you're out in the country in a community where everybody knows each other. You see the whites of someone's eyes. It's very hard to take advantage of them when you know you're going to see them again tomorrow. But in a city, you're just an anonymous face. You'll never be seen again. So it's a very different way of operating.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that plays into the dynamics we were talking about before. Like, um, you have a tourist there, they're going to be gone in a week and you're never going to see them again.
Yeah.
So why not try to rip them
Yeah.
off?
Did you, have a moment where I hate to use the red pill, blue pill cliche now, but did you have a moment where things just woke you up, where you just sat up and went, "Whoa, things are not the way that I thought or the way that I was taught growing up." Was it COVID for you? Was it before that?
I would say, I mean, my first real red pill moment would probably have happened in like 2003 when I was in high school, um,
Wow.
with the Iraq War. I mean, it all post 9/11 to that whole thing. Like, I wasn't really super aware of the like exactly what was happening, but I could tell like um, it wasn't. There was something else going on besides
Hmm.
national security interests. And then I read 1984 and Animal Farm, Brave New World, and I started to kind of understand more about what power does, how it operates, how it manipulates you.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I've never really trusted any authority figure, even before that, just kind of like by nature. Um, and then, I mean, of course, COVID, like, even for people who kind of knew what was up. I mean, I knew what was up basically from the beginning,
Mhm.
and I was writing about it at the time. I don't like blame people who like fell for the shot propaganda and got injected and were scared of the virus at first and like wiped their
Yeah.
groceries down or whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't do any of that. I knew from the start that this was like a massive psyop. But
Yeah.
even so, it was still kind of shocking to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. The depths to which all of this could go, how far they could push things. And what was shocking is once once we sort of saw what was happening, to see how quickly other people would go along with these things that just didn't make any sense. And you couldn't have a conversation with people about it.
Yeah, that was the wildest part, I think, to me, was how quickly people would turn on each other, people that they knew for years,
Yeah.
just because the TV told them to hate them.
Yeah. Yeah. How quickly we jumped into those boats and just kind of sailed away from each other was really amazing. I'm still a little bit in shock by all of it.
And by the way, none of the
But
people who did that have been held responsible, not one person,
yeah. Yeah.
which is like, I'm wondering when are the prosecutions gonna start, you know?
Do you think they are? I mean, do you think it's
No,
ever going to happen?
no.
Yeah. That's one of the things that's currently shocking is that people think that it will happen, that retribution or that justice will come. Like, why would you think that that's going to happen? That's what surprises me.
Helpful thinking. Yeah, I don't, you shouldn't. I don't know why anyone would, but
Yeah.
eternal optimism, maybe.
I suppose, and, maybe there's something to be said for that. I think, you and I maybe are a little bit, more jaded than other people, so maybe there's a little optimism is not a bad thing. I mean, I feel like there are maybe more people waking up and starting to realize that, the world isn't exactly what they thought it was, and they're still in that moment when you're waking up and you're not quite sure, maybe I could just go back to sleep and it'll all be a dream. What would you say to people like that? What advice would you give them in terms of, helping to see things a little bit more clearly?
Well, do you remember that article that Forbes wrote in the during the pandemic? The headline was, "You must not do your own research."
I do not, but I mean, I feel like I've read that story. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it was crazy. It was just a whole essay about how you shouldn't investigate anything yourself. You just need to, the thing,
Trust the
whatever.
experts.
Trust the experts. Yeah, exactly. Um, I don't know how anyone could like see that and not wonder why someone's telling me not to do my own research. I mean, it's so obvious that they're lying to you because they want to lie to you and they want to manipulate you and they want to keep you ignorant. It's like the oldest story in history,
Yeah,
like the Catholic priesthood kept everything in Latin so the people that they lorded over wouldn't be able to read. They were the middlemen, so they could tell
yeah,
you what God said instead
yeah.
of just going to the source.
Doing your own research. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Yeah. First, I mean, maybe I don't know what has to come first. Like if you have to realize you're being lied to first, or if you have to do your own research before you can realize you're being lied to. Um, Maybe the second one. Probably just do your own. Just like read if someone's telling you something. Like don't take it at
Check
face value.
check it. Yeah, 100%. What do you think, are some of the most hidden or unreported stories right now, whether it's in Asia or whether it's, something happening in Yemen or in the Middle East? What do you think deserves a little bit more proper attention where people could dive in and do their own research?
Um, I don't know the most important, but bird flu maybe. Because you know, it's all they would like to repeat the whole COVID thing all over again with bird flu
Yeah.
and destroy the food supply in the process. So everyone can eat the bugs.
Yeah. Yeah, that one
Yeah.
is shocking that the idea that they would bring another pandemic around that would then destroy the food system, it's like, wow, new and improved. We
Yeah.
figured this one out and took it to another level. It's crazy.
Double
Yeah.
whammy.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah. Um, well, I think it's been great chatting with you. Let's maybe start to close up. Maybe what are your focus areas right now? What are you kind of paying attention to? What do you think's coming in the next few months?
Uh, I mean, bird flu, maybe. They did a study. There was a study recently that found. I mean, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, of course, but they allegedly found that bird flu could transmit between mammals now, between
Oh,
sea mammals, which is like that's kind of the linchpin um, to sparking a new pandemic would be human to human transmission. Because
right.
for now, the only thing they have allegedly found is, by the way, using PCR tests, which are a scam and they don't show active viruses inside of living things. They just show like
Right.
fragments. So it's not it's all BS. But allegedly, what they have found so far is just like bird to human transmission, and then it's a dead end. So what they would really like would be human to human transmission, which I'm sure
Mhm.
they're working on very hard in some lab
Yeah.
in wherever in
Yeah.
Madagascar or whatever. Um, so if you believe that um, the virus has mutated now, either naturally or through manipulation to transmit between mammals, it's really not that much of a leap to human transmission.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I mean, like I don't know what to do to stop it because I'm sure there's active gain of function research going on like right this moment.
Mhm.
Um, they already have like all the um, basically they have all the pieces in place to lock down again. Trump might not go along with it, but state authorities have a lot of power, so blue jurisdictions are just gonna it's gonna be all the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
But now with less food.
but less chickens to eat. Yeah,
Less chickens and beef. They're implicating cattle in this as well. So there's some homework for people. They can look up what PCR tests are and what they actually do. Look up what the actual symptoms are of bird flu and how sick it actually makes people, which is actually not that bad. And then people can figure out how to strengthen their immune systems so that if there is another wave of so-called illness, that you can just be ahead of the game and be as healthy as you can be, I guess.
yep. And don't do anything the CDC tells you, which is basically get vaccinated. I mean, that's all they tell you to do ever for anything.
Do you think there's going to be a new improved CDC now?
I hope I would like that.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah, RFK Jr. so far has been like a real mixed bag, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. I think it's an uphill battle, so even if he has the best of intentions, it's going to be hard to get everything done, but
They need they need like mass. I mean, they fired some people, a lot of people, but they need like mass. Basically, anyone in any management position in CDC has to go. Like, if you're a good, you can reapply later if you're like if you're like the one honest bureaucrat at the CDC, like you can apply later. But I don't like the approach of like a hack here or a hack there. Like the whole agency has been corrupt for decades and decades, and they all have to go. That's the
yeah.
only way to like really clean it out.
Yeah, it's like pulling out dandelions instead of just plowing the whole field under.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta just exterminate all of it
Um, ben, rem
non-violently, non-violently,
non-violently and with optimism.
and with optimism. Yeah,
Remind people how they can find you if they haven't heard about you and follow along with what you write about.
I write at Substack at armageddonprose.com. Um, I also have another like side project I started called Armageddon Safari. So
Mm,
armageddonsafari.substack.com. It's like I describe it as a dystopian travel blog. I don't really know what it is, but you can check that out. And on X, Armageddon Prose or Ben Bartee. Um, I also write for PJ Media, which
Oh,
is
cool.
affiliated with Town Hall Media. Um, so I've been writing there for a couple years now, and that's pretty nice. Those are the main
Fantastic.
places. Yeah.
That's great. Well, keep up the good work. We always enjoy reading your stuff, and hope we'll have you back one of these days soon. Let us know what's going on. Keep us posted.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
Folks, if you're not already following Ben's work, you need to head over to Substack and check out Armageddon Prose. And while you're there, stop by Collapse Life and subscribe to our newsletter. We've got fresh stories every week, and we also have some subscriber only tools and resources to help you prepare for what's coming. You can learn more about us at collapselife.com. And if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, you can buy us a coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee page. Every cup keeps us fueled and focused on these vital conversations that these times demand. Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week. And until then, just remember to keep your chin up. It's only collapse. See you soon.